Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to this event live on our Facebook page. I'm delighted to have with me this afternoon Sophia Bukel, who's our Senior Community Advisor within our community team. So welcome, Sophia. Thank you for coming along today.
Hi, Joanna. Thanks.
So Sophia's here this afternoon to tell us a little bit about the advice line and the role that the advice line has played predominantly over the last year or so in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The advice line has seen a significant increase in calls and inquiries. In fact, have almost tripled from the year before. So huge numbers of people are contacting the advice line and seeking support and advice that way. So Sophia, do you want to tell us just a little bit about your role on the advice line and the team indeed that support the advice line?
Yep, so my role is obviously the senior community advisor within the team. So I kind of support and mentor the kind of wider communities team day to day with the kind of day-to-day functions that we have. We're quite a small team actually. At the moment, I think there's only 6 of us, including myself. So it's relatively small, and we're dealing with kind of quite a lot of inquiries on a week-to-week basis. I'd like to say 100, but I would say that it's probably a bit less than that, to be honest. We deal with a variety of inquiries that come in through the advice line. You know, no day is the same, shall we say. And we support people either over the phone, via email, or via a live chat function on the website. So there's various different ways in which people can get in touch with us, recognizing that maybe phone isn't always the best way for people to make contact. So I guess that's what the advice line kind of functions day to day, and obviously we can provide advice, support and guidance to, you know, autistic people, parents or carers or professionals as well. So we kind of support kind of the whole kind of autism community, shall we say.
And the live chat's quite new, isn't it, Sophia? That's something that we've only had in the last, I'm trying to think, it must be sort of May time that we introduced the live chat.
Yeah, it was May time that the live chat came in, and we introduced that in response to the pandemic, to kind of increase our reach to people, and to make us a bit more easily accessible. So it is relatively new, and I want to say that we've had kind of thousands of inquiries since May. I don't know the number that have come through live chat, but it's kind of a couple of thousand, I would say, at least.
Yeah. I think the last time I looked, just touching just over 2,500 live chat inquiries. So that's a huge number of people, isn't it? That's coming. And you mentioned there around accessibility, and has the team found that the live chat sort of is enabling more people to get in contact with the team, do you think?
Definitely, there are people that get in touch with us via the live chat that indicate that phone call isn't an accessible method of communication for them. So they've chosen to come and talk to us via live chat, and they quite like the fact that it's kind of got that instant feedback from an advisor to talk through things, rather than, I guess, an email where sometimes we can take up to 5 working days to get back to people. So the live chat, definitely, you know, we've seen people who we've maybe never spoken to before actually accessing us via that means. So yeah, it's been a success, I would say.
Yeah, and you mentioned there around the phone line, you know, that's seen a massive increase in inquiries that have come in through the phone line, and obviously we've still got the mailbox as well, haven't we? That's open and up and running for stuff. So have we seen quite a significant increase in the phone line over the last while?
Definitely, the phone is always going. So we're not always able to answer people's phone calls because we might be on another call. So if that is the case, people are tending to leave voicemails if they're comfortable to do so, or people are choosing to email in from that point if they're not able to get a hold of us. So it's definitely much busier on the phones. A lot more inquiries coming in. Again, on a variety of different kind of areas of support that people are looking for, whether it's COVID related or not. So yeah, definitely seen an increase in the kind of phone calls, and then obviously with that the emails as well, to be honest.
Yeah, and you mentioned there as well earlier around It's a real variety of people that are getting in touch with the advisors on the advice line. Parents, carers, grandparents,
Yep.
family members, professionals who maybe work with or alongside sick person, autistic people themselves are contacting the advice line. So a real kind of good spread of people, and the advice line has often spoken to lots of different people, hasn't it, over the years, now to provide those different types of advice that people need, or signposting that onto other organisations. I know earlier on in the year, or perhaps towards the end of last year, we had our colleagues and friends from the Inquire helpline onto our Facebook Live event, and I know the advice team have a good relationship with the help at Inquire, kind of making people over the going over to get that kind of advice from them. And there's lots of other kind of organisations that will signpost to as well, isn't there, Sophia?
Yeah, there's a lot of different organisations that will signpost dependent on obviously the circumstances that somebody is phoning in. So, for example, we will signpost to local advocacy organisations if we feel that would be of benefit to people's situations. We'll also signpost kind of for legal advice, again, dependent on the circumstance. So there's a lot of different kind of organisations that we're aware of that might be able to kind of offer support if we're not able to offer support directly. There's lots of organisations that we're aware of that we can potentially signpost people to.
And it's not a kind of I suppose a kind of standard response that we get people, is it? It's every inquiry, every email is dealt with individually, aren't they? And everybody's given an individualised and bespoke response relevant to the question that they've answered.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes we'll get emails in and we'll obviously take on board what's within that email and obviously try and respond to that. Or sometimes we might, from an email say, actually, can we have a chat with you over the phone if you feel able to? Sometimes we just want that bit more of information to obviously give that personalised response to people. And what, I guess whilst we're talking to people on the phone, we'll take as long or as little time with people to kind of listen to their situation to be able to formulate that kind of personalised response. So yeah, it's not a kind of just off the shelf kind of response. It's very much personalised to people's circumstances.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we're incredibly proud of as a team, isn't it? That this is about. I think we've throughout several of our events over this last period, we've talked about the importance of people listening to people and people talking to people and taking that time to get to know that person's individual circumstances and really trying as much as we possibly can to help and support and to give the right advice or the right signposting going forward. So.
Yeah, and on that, I guess, obviously, with the pandemic, we've had a lot of regular contact with people, which we necessarily probably wouldn't have had before the pandemic. So we're having much more regular contact with people, dependent on their circumstances and whether things are moving forwards for them or whether it's kind of been around kind of, I guess, loneliness and isolation at this time as well. So that's kind of changed the dynamic of the advice line as well further, in the sense of, that continued support for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, with thanks to our supporters over the last year, or indeed, over the last several years that the advice line has been in existence, it's, a big thank you to our supporters who've been able to be able to do things like that, to be able to, offer those kind of, you mentioned there, that kind of longer term involvement and engagement with people, particularly over the last year where people have felt maybe isolated or, cut off from normal kind of or existing social kind of networks. They've been able to come to the advice line and have regular calls, and we've had several individuals last year who've we've spoken to sometimes weekly, sometimes twice a week, during that very difficult period for people. And it's a thanks to those people that support us. The advice line, it does relies on supporters and fundraising to keep us open and operational. So it's been great that we've been able to do bits and pieces like that.
Definitely, yeah, really important.
Absolutely. So we do have some questions coming in here,
Okay.
coming in thick and fast. I'm just going to see if I can pull out some bits and pieces. We've got one here from Nikki, who's just said she's just received her diagnosis. So congratulations, Nikki. And she'll probably be contacting us soon. So please do. Our advisors are standing by and waiting. And actually, post-diagnostic and pre-diagnostic support is one of our most inquired about subject areas, isn't it, Sophia?
It is, yeah. We get a lot of people kind of pre-diagnosis making contact with us, whether that's at kind of the beginning stages of how do you go about, requesting an autism assessment, to maybe being on a waiting list. And obviously a lot of families have contacted us of late kind of with those further longer waiting times than what they were pre-pandemic. But then also the post-diagnostic side of things, I guess we're part of that national post-diagnostic support kind of scheme that's being piloted at the moment. So again, those that have recently kind of received a diagnosis, we're receiving kind of a lot of inquiries in relation to that, and we'll obviously help people navigate which support is going to be the best fit for them through that scheme, if that's what they feel would be, right for them at this time. Some people feel that they just need some time to process that information.
No, absolutely. And we've got another, I suppose, comment here from Donna, and again, this is around the support that the Advice Line can offer. So Donna has said here her son is 28 and has Asperger's, and has recently received a positive COVID result, and would like somebody to help him, to tell him he'll be okay. And that's something that you guys have been doing a lot of recently, hasn't it? That kind of support and reassurance to understand not only the impact that COVID has had on the community, but also to help navigate what the restrictions mean, how that impacts on people's lives. And you guys were quite instrumental in developing those resources that are on our website, aren't you, in terms of the support for COVID?
Yeah, so with the pandemic, the things that we've done as a team have kind of changed that dynamic for us slightly. So we have produced some resources on the website kind of during the pandemic around coronavirus, some of it explaining what COVID is, or for example going through the testing process, and maybe kind of getting in touch with us in relation to kind of that support. If, for example, the inquiry that's come in just now about the 28-year-old, contact us, have a chat with us, and we'll see what we can help support there. And we've also got lots of other kind of wellbeing resources that we've developed through COVID as well. So there's a massive resource suite there for people to access. But again, I guess it's very much kind of trying to meet the need of a wide audience. So if you're looking for a very specific kind of, again, that personalized advice and support, then obviously get in touch with the Advice Line, and obviously we can help support some of that.
And the communities team that or the guys that are on the end of the phone or on the end of an email come from a real broad background, don't they? I mean, we've got our longest serving member of staff has 30+ years experience in the field. There's quite a good sort of spread of experience and knowledge and backgrounds on the Advice Line, isn't there?
Definitely. All of us with kind of various different backgrounds, some having an education background, some having worked in services directly, some with very kind of specific, I guess, backgrounds in relation to transition from child to adult services. So we do bring a kind of vast amount of experience. And I think, Joanna, you've said once before that we're kind of this super advisor, where we've probably got altogether around 100 years over experience between us all. So I guess even if you do speak to one of us on the phone, sometimes we might turn around and say, actually, could we speak to the wider team about this? And that's where we're able to then bring our different experiences together to kind of help support particular inquiries, especially those that are a bit more complex.
Yeah, absolutely. Or we can refer to colleagues, so actually, I might not have the knowledge here, but actually my colleague does. So I can bring them into this and have the conversation with them. So the real spread of experience there. Just having a look through, we've got lots and lots of activity under the event, Sophia. So again, there's a comment here rather than a question, but from Tracy that says most help is central and centrally placed within Scotland. There's not much for rural areas. I suppose the great things about the advice line is that we are national and we are part of that rural community just as much as we are sort of in the more urban areas. And we make a concerted effort to understand what's going on in those areas, don't we, and try and find things for people in those rural areas.
And I guess it's just acknowledging that rural areas totally understand that there's possibly not much in those areas, but because we are I guess that kind of centralized hub, we do have a good idea of what's going on across the piece, across Scotland, which allows us to, I guess, share that knowledge with people that contact us from those rural areas. But I guess what we also do, Joanna, and you might be able to kind of add to this, is obviously we collect themes in relation to the advice line, and we take note of potential themes and areas maybe that are struggling with regards to access to services, and I guess that informs our awareness raising as an organisation, kind of to other stakeholders like the Scottish Government, for example. I'm just putting it out there.
Absolutely. I mean, the advice line gives us lots of information about what's happening, and we can use that information to make sure that we're listening to the voices of the autism and autistic community and what do they need and what do they want. I can actually see under the event today that there's quite a few comments around rural areas and the support there. And I suppose one of our biggest examples of support that we have put into rural areas was our Get Set for Autism project that initially started in Argyll and Bute, which is part now of the National Post Diagnostic Service. But that covers the whole of Scotland, doesn't it? And we're supporting at the moment through the communities team a number of families in different kind of more rural areas, if you like, of Scotland, aren't we? And being able to, I suppose that's one of the great things about to come out of this situation is that we have the technology now to get into those places, and it's not entirely the answer, but it's the answer, isn't it? Just having a look through here. Donna's come back and said thank you very much. She will encourage her son to give us a call. And don't forget, Donna, we also have our email function and our live chat function as well, if that's more comfortable to get in contact with us. So we've got lots of different ways that you can. So yeah, lots and lots of people working here. We've got a question here around benefits, and obviously the move over from some of the DWP administering some of those benefits over to Social Security Scotland, and we actually work very closely with Social Security, our colleagues at Social Security Scotland, informing that the kind of process and that engagement process. But benefits again is another question that regularly comes in through the advice line, isn't it? So it's one of those ones that kind of pops up, and we can refer people on to places like the Citizens Advice Bureau, can't we, to help complete forms and things like that.
Yeah, we're not able to support completion of forms, unfortunately, so we do tend to signpost people to the relevant organisations that can help complete those forms, like Citizens Advice, like you say, or carers centres, or even contact a family, are able to give a bit more advice and guidance than what we possibly can in relation to benefits. But obviously, I guess that question specifically around the change from DWP to Social Security Scotland, and I guess it's still going through that trial phase, is my understanding, or it's starting that trial phase. So we've still got a wee while to go before I guess the change is made. But I guess, as a team, that's something we'll be keeping an eye on and looking into to be able to obviously advise and offer support or guidance if people contact us.
Yeah, absolutely. The other sort of themes that are coming up through the comments of the questions here is around well-being and wellness and things like that. And again, that's one of the things that we've seen over the last year, haven't we? We've seen a quite a significant rise in the number of people contacting us who are asking for either help with their mental well-being, or again, we touched on earlier, you know, that kind of feeling connected with people.
Yeah.
And you guys work alongside a number of individuals, don't you, kind of supporting with well-being and mental health?
Yeah, so we've supported quite a few people throughout this time with regards to well-being and mental health, shall we say, through various different means, whether that's regular phone calls, but also via email, supporting people via email and exploring obviously that support and what that what they require and what it looks like. But obviously with the pandemic and obviously those increasing calls, we've also seen, I guess, the development of other services here at Scottish Autism to obviously support some of that. So obviously during the winter time, we had Winter Connections, which I know is obviously, you know, there's been successes to that project, and obviously some of that hopes to continue through the online events, which I think is the Mindful Autism Support Group,
Yeah.
Choir and Art Group. So those will continue because they were a success. But also we have the Affinity service as well, that was launched just before Christmas, which is about, I guess, assisted decision making, problem solving and managing stress, which some of the people that I guess we supported throughout the pandemic have been able to kind of move on to get the support that they particularly needed at this time. So I guess we're developing and evolving what we can offer people, but I guess, you know, in the first instance, we can offer that kind of emotional support and that listening ear in the first instance.
So all of that is coming in through the advice line, all that you know, requests and help, and you guys are really kind of thinking like, well, you know, send Sue over to this bit, you can get that help over there, and you really are kind of you know, a kind of portal to lots of different areas that people can get support and help from. So all coming through that advice line. So we've just had a comment here as well. Just we touched on the Get Set for Autism, part of the national post-diagnostic work, and you know, we're working alongside a number of other organisations, including some autistic-led organisations in Scotland, to, you know, to route people to the right post-diagnostic help. And you guys, you know, refer on to places like SWAN, National Autistic Society, Autism Initiatives, ARG in the Highlands, lots and lots of different groups here. But this question here has come in from Laura, and she would like to know just a little bit about the type of support that the Get Set for Autism project can offer parents and families of recently diagnosed children.
Yeah, of course. So the Get Set for Autism programme is for parents and carers whose child is under the age of 18. And I guess the kind of main focus of that programme of support is about kind of increasing parents and carers' understanding in relation to autism, to kind of improve the links amongst professionals that would be relevant to be involved in their child's kind of support. But also, most importantly, obviously, you know, supporting parents and carers to feel that they can meet the needs of their child. So that's the kind of main focus. However, within that, what we tend to do with families is obviously talk about kind of their circumstances, to be able to personalise the support that we're going to offer, and we'll tend to identify 5 key areas of kind of support throughout the programme. So it could be in relation to education and the learning environment, it could be in relation to sleep. It could be in relation to anxiety or routines, for example. So it is really varied as to what people kind of look for in terms of that specific support. Due to the pandemic just now, the support is primarily being delivered kind of via Zoom, or Microsoft Teams, or the telephone. It's whatever's kind of, I guess, most accessible to people, and we'll deliver kind of some kind of core, I guess, meetings with those parents and carers over 4 to 6 sessions. They can be spread out as much as kind of parents and carers feel that they need. So some parents choose to have it weekly in the first instance, but then start to spread it out over 3 to 4 weeks. But within that, the parents and carers who are accessing the programme know that they can obviously touch base with us in between time if there's kind of a question that they have or something's cropped up and they're really struggling. So there is that kind of interim support between those sessions as well. So I guess that's the Get Set programme that we're offering just now, and obviously that's across Scotland for people to access.
And if anybody wants any more information or just to learn a little bit more about any of the projects that Sophia has mentioned this afternoon, then do give us a call or drop us an email, or you can find information and details on our website. And indeed, any of the resources that Sophia has mentioned today, there's not only resources there to do with COVID, there's lots and lots of different resources that the communities team have developed, and they're on standby right now. They're on the phone right now, ready to take anybody's phone call that feels they would like a little bit of advice, signposting, or indeed, as Sophia says, just that listening ear. And we'll pop up the details of how you can contact the advice line on various different ways that we have, and that will come up on our screens in a second or two. And so you can see here, the advice line is open Tuesday to Friday, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m, and that's for both the phone line and the live chat function. You can access our live chat function via our website. You just go on to www.scottishautism.org, and you'll see the little icon in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. You click on that, and it will connect you directly with an advisor. As I said, we have our email address as well, so if you would prefer to get in contact with the team via email, you can email advice@scottishautism.org, and the advisors will aim to get back to you as soon as they possibly can. If your inquiry is more urgent, or you want to speak to somebody a bit more quickly, then the phone line, as I said, is open 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. You can also post a question in our Ask an Advisor Facebook group, which is monitored by our advisory team. So if you've got a question, we can either answer it in there, or we can answer you via a direct message as well. So lots of ways that you can get in contact with us, and we're here, we're open, we're ready to have conversations with people. So don't worry if you've not had a chance to note any of that down. Our fantastic team behind the scenes will be posting that information up in the chat underneath us, and you can also find all those contact details on our website as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. I hope it's been useful to learn a little bit about what the advice line does. And thank you, Sophia, for coming along and telling us about your role and the types of things that the communities team are talking about on our advice line. So stay tuned to our Facebook pages for all information about our future events. We're hoping to do more advice line events as well. So if there's topics that you'd like us to cover through our advice line events, then please do let us know. You can drop us an email into the advice line mailbox, and we'll look at those. So thanks everybody for joining us, and take care. Bye.
Bye.